Welcome to a brand new podcast. Ian McLean is a writer and the author of TJS War. David Blair is an actor and the narrator of the audiobook TJS War. David and Ian have been listening to their readers and listeners and have decided to turn TJS War into a movie. And since the story covers the entirety of World War II, the movie will cost at least $50 million. Will David and Ian succeed in their quest? Follow them in this podcast series. We're going to make a $50 million movie.
Hey folks, welcome back to another exciting episode of We're Making a $50 million 20 episode series. We've been calling it We're Gonna Make a No. Okay, we're making a $50 million 20 episode series for Netflix, Hulu, Paramount Plus, Disney, whoever the highest bidder is that will not compromise the integrity and intention of the project. I'm Mark Reid along with David Blair. I also host the Zen Sandwich podcast and thrilled to be a collaborator on this project. David is a brilliant voice actor and is, in fact, the voice of the audiobook of the novel we will turn into a 20-episode streaming series and an executive producer of this show, this series. David, here we are.
Hey, Quinn.
Hey, Syya.
Should we jump in and introduce ourselves now, or should we just let them keep talking?
Oh, I think we could introduce ourselves. So I'm Quinn.
I'm Syya. We're behind the scenes crew. Can I just tell you, though, did you see Mark is trying to do the intro, and he introduced, I'm Mark Reid, and this is David. And I think David was about to say hello, and I think he just kind of did the, I guess I won't talk now.
Absolutely. And we're going to do that for them for the entire podcast as we stop and interrupt and let you know our opinions on everything that's being said, the things that they're going into, and obviously we'll make our comments and our thoughts and feelings known throughout this episode. So we're back doing another one of these. Shall we get into it?
We're back.
And we still have a lot to discuss. How are you?
Morning, afternoon. I must apologise to the listener. We've been talking about our setup here on Riverside, and for some reason the camera seems to be in love with me this morning, and it's on some weird auto zoom thing. So I'm all pixelated, and I have no settings to be able to tell it to back up a little. So
Well,
I apologise, viewer. This is not my choice. I haven't chosen to zoom in for you.
That is one of the upgrades we will
we
need to make for our Emmy run.
Yes.
See what I'm doing? I'm trying to use that as a segue. Folks, if you are a movie, TV show buff, you're probably aware, whether you watched it or not, you might be just aware of its existence of a FX Hulu series called Shogun. Shogun just made history, sweeping the Emmys with a record number 18 awards for a record number for an all-time record for a first-time series. 18 Emmy awards. That show has been an incredible inspiration for us and for what we're doing as we push forward with TJS War, because we essentially are also doing a period piece. And we are also essentially doing a creative nonfiction piece. Shogun is based on real life events that began the Edo period in Japan. We won't delve into Japanese history, but it's based on real people, and it was written, and the characters' names are changed, but those are all real live people, well, that were once alive. And that's what we're doing too. Same thing, just different part of history. We want to tell the dramatic version of something that actually happened. So I think our timing might be right on this, given what audiences are looking for these days. So from costume design to acting, the soundtrack, stunts, even down to the hairstyles, they won an Emmy for hairstyles. Every single aspect of Shogun was masterfully done. And that's the level of excellence we're aiming for in this project. Wouldn't you agree, David?
Absolutely, yeah. The production values on that were off the chart.
I think I've seen Shogun, but I don't need to have seen it. I've seen imagery, and I remember the cultural impact of it. Because here's where I think where my brain's going a little bit is Shogun from a Western audience perspective is intriguing because it feels foreign, a foreign time, foreign country, foreign culture. And I hate to say this, Quinn, maybe you represent here. Does World War II feel like a foreign time and a foreign place to you? Much
I
like
mean, I
I
would say
think
it
Shogun
does.
is?
I mean, we tend to have a lot in kind of British schools and everything. Obviously, as we grow up, we have a lot of kind of like. So I think it does in the way of you've got the half of World War II, which you look at, which is obviously this, British spirit and Britain's getting on and like, dig for victory and all that kind of stuff, which obviously for us doesn't feel alien because obviously it's something that we all grew up with because as soon as you hit a British primary school, World War II is the only history you learn until you get to like high school. It's just World War II, World War II, World War II, and it's basically thrown at you. And then occasionally they do Victorians and things like that. But I think this side, which is very much alien to us, is probably the side that we're really trying to push with obviously the movie or movie or TV show is the side of it where it's not all about oh Britain's great. It's actually a awful conflict that cost millions upon millions of lives. That's just not even touched upon in our kind of like schooling up until quite a late stage, I would consider, considering I knew nothing about, I would say, the vast majority of it till I was about 12, 13, 14.
Oh my.
So I think in a way it is alien. So there's going to be a lot, as you say, with Shogun, where, there's a lot of perspective that, is very alien to us, while also it taking the perspective that isn't alien and kind of making us realize what the context of that perspective really is.
Nice. That's good to know. It's so fascinating to hear how your school system is versus the American school system, right? Because that's the thing that's really appealing to me about TJ's War, this book, is the fact that it's universal and it's intended to be universal, even though it's set on the European Western side of the front, right? But TJ does travel everywhere. So
yeah, he spends a considerable time in America, in all fairness, so there is that element to it as well.
Right? Okay, so fascinating. And I know Mark's just in love with the cinematography and the costuming. And I wonder if there is a little bit of danger of romanticism.
And I think that is something that really does come across as an adult learning about, more about World War II and, everything surrounding it after being kind of brought up in a schooling system that does romanticize World War II quite a lot. So I think there is a very large pitfall that could be thrown into it, but that we could fall into. However, I think with obviously Ian having written the book in the way that he has, I feel like obviously the source material that we've got does a very good job of not falling into the pitfalls of romanticism.
As good as you're going to get.
So all of that brings us to what we're discussing today. Recently, in one of our weekly business meetings on this topic, a key notion came up that I would like for us to dive into a bit more. We need to be thinking about making a pilot. Yes, we all have this grand vision for what TJ's War is, and we have a broad notion of how that might look as we see the story arc and see TJ's evolution over the course of the novel. But it's the pilot. It's the pilot episode that hooks the audience right from the start. It's the pilot that makes the money, the people with the money, eager to see 18 more episodes, 19 more episodes. It's the pilot that convinces the financial backers that this is the next Shogun, is what I'm getting around to. So today, let's talk about the key considerations for creating that perfect pilot.
Well, firstly, before we do go any further, the pilot will be made, even when the pilot gets made, it will be made as part of the first series. So it's not. This won't be a part of pilot season, say. I mean, I think that's mostly sort of smaller TV shows and sitcoms, comedies and stuff that are involved in pilot season. I might be wrong about that, but you're right. Pilots are made and then, they're all looked at and a certain amount are picked up. But our pilot does have to do the things you've said, but perhaps not for the reasons that you meant. So
Okay.
it does absolutely have to sort of start with a bang, make an impact, and just as importantly, hook us into the characters. It needs to outlay. I can't think of the right word. We need to be not only invested in the characters, but we need to understand what this story is. What world are we in, and roughly, what kind of thing might happen as we go on through the series.
So I got to add this one thing that he just said right there is, like all pilot episodes, you have to make people give a damn, like care about these main core characters that we're going to be investing our time in. And so it is that ultimate hook is what a pilot is supposed to be pulling you in, right? Can you immerse yourself into the story? Can you rally around the protagonists and make me care? Whatever that care emotion is, care as in like, oh my goodness, I resonate with the story, or I resonate with this person's struggles, or let's be honest, Quinn, that actor's hot. I'm in.
Yeah, and I think what a good example actually is the first episode of Game of Thrones. I know that they had a pilot before that pilot, and they had a load of characters that they had kind of decided for that pilot. And for instance, like Daenerys, she had a completely different actress that just no one gelled with. And I was watching something a while back about the making of that initial episode, and just they created this pilot. They put it out to, markets and people to watch it, and all the people just went, "We don't care about his family." Like, there was no hook. No one was connecting to it. No one really understood why we were watching this. It wasn't interesting. And then so they went back. They said, "Look, try us again. Change this." They had someone come in who then, like, if I remember rightly, he came in and he started kind of putting the ducks in a row and trying to figure out, obviously, what needed to go, how did it need to go. He put that pilot together, and then everyone remembers the things I do for love, and how it's that moment that everyone just went, "Wait, what?" And it was like all these characters, the way that they finished that first episode with, "Look, all these characters that you love, and it's all good, and this one kid, and he climbs, and everyone loves him, and it's just like, oh, he's so poor, and now he's out a window, cuts to black, end credits." Everyone was like, "I need to see what happens on the next episode." And
what's
that's
next?
what we want.
Yes.
Yeah, what's next? But
Yes.
it's like every single character, okay, we're not going to have, 15 main characters in that first episode. We're going to have one. And, for the most part, one. But, like, we're going to need to spend time building him up. So by the end of that episode, they go, "Oh, what happens to him now? What, where is he going to go? What is he going to do?" And I think that's obviously quite crucial with a pilot, more so than, you need to be able to create that hook that not only hooks the people in to say, yes, we're going to make the rest of this, but also grabs those people that get to watch that pilot so that they go, "We need to see what happens next."
I could not agree more. That's funny you mentioned Game of Thrones. Where Game of Thrones had to have extra work to do is get the viewers to buy into this universe, this fictitious universe. I will say TJ's War, let's be honest, has a little bit of a slide in advance of people have some impression of World War II already. Good, bad, ugly, indifference, whatever it might be. But I think at least we're lucky we don't have to create that world per se as hard, because people theoretically, at least from a Western perspective, already have some idea of a Western view of World War II.
And I think obviously it's also built in a world which has the same physics as us, has the same lack of magic as us, has the same lack of technological advancement and things like that. So it doesn't take so long for someone to get into it. For instance, Westworld, you spend the first episode going, okay, what's going on? Okay, who's that? Okay, are they real? Okay, what's going on here? And then you kind of go, oh my God, I want to watch more. In
Yes.
Game of Thrones, you're like, okay, so who are these people? And what country is this? And so you have that element. Whereas in our one, it's going to be, well, no one's going, what's a Scotland? You know,
I hope
where's a
not.
Norway?
I hope not. Oh, Quinn, can you imagine what's a Norway?
So what are the key components that have to be exposed in the first episode, the pilot episode?
Well, interestingly, we are currently in sort of early stages production meetings with the producer Ian and I, and we're discussing this very thing, what goes in the pilot, amongst other things. And a certain amount of the way people watch stuff now, we're also making it for the audience that has a phone here and decides in the first few seconds of watching something on TikTok or Instagram whether they're interested or whether they're going to swipe to another one. So it doesn't have to be that fast, obviously. It's a TV show, not TikTok. But we are dealing with a far shorter attention span nowadays than, say, 10 years ago, even, maybe even less than that. So we do have to start with a bang, probably literally. So what we think we might do is start a little bit further into the story. There's an episode when TJ is in Norway. He goes to Norway several times, but the first one when he's just a very young private. And not only can we start with some exciting stuff, we're kind of mid-battle, it's freezing cold. Soldiers are sometimes going to sleep at night, just rolled up in their coat, whatever they've got, because the British Army were, from what I understand, hopelessly ill-equipped for the cold, the colder environments, and then not waking up in the morning. So the cold was often their enemy as much as the actual enemy. And we can also be introduced to the theme of class as well, because often there were young officers who were ill-trained, but they were in that role because of the class structure in the British Army. And oftentimes those underneath them, and in the case of TJ, were more able because of their upbringing, their temperament. So TJ finds himself in that position. So we're introduced to the fact that this is going to have elements of action, sort of stuff that's interesting, stimulating, but other stuff as well. That TJ is a capable young man. He's a good guy. He wanted to be a vet, and at some point we'll see that in the first episode. But as with millions of cases, that intended future was snatched away from them, and they were thrust into this kind of otherworldly sequence of events.
Yeah, there's so much there, and that's what begs the question of, how do you balance the need to introduce all of this backstory and all of these deeper elements to who TJ was before, without overwhelming the audience in the first episode. I mean, because you're balancing the depth of the story with the thing you mentioned at the beginning, this short attention span audience that are used to 2 second. They're used to TikToks and YouTube clips that literally change every 2 seconds. If you can see how quickly they're edited these days, and it's
having the choice, right?
The choice to click away, or
kind of,
what do you mean?
I like it or not? And I act on whether I like it or not. Whereas with a TV show, it's just in front of you. You just sit and watch it. You can't. Obviously, you can turn it off. But
I'm of the opinion, and let me get your take on this. I'm sort of I battle that a little bit with my other podcast. I won't mention it again because I'm not trying here to plug my show, but I have in the past wrestled with this notion that, hey, it's not my audience is not a TikTok audience. I'm not. You either kind of have to be the kind of person that is able to, even though I have short episodes, they're 15 minutes, but you've got to be able to sit down and listen to something for 15 minutes. If you just need constant stimulation, my show's not for you, is kind of my point. And should we resign to, well, look, we're making a drama that has depth and deals with deep issues. This is not a superhero action movie that we need explosions every 30 seconds. Like we need, I don't want to say we need an intellectual audience, but this is a movie that's made for people who.
So yeah, we're not making this for a 14-year-old audience. Absolutely.
You know, who's the audience? How are we going to do it? And I think my point is like, we need to drip feed that information in that starting point. So, you know, that first episode, we don't need to give them the complete backstory as to who TJ is. We need to basically, on that initial one, give him like, you know, I don't know, start it with him at university with the girls in hand, like him and those girls, of, you know, and his roommate, they're all gone to go get the sign up. Have that real kind of like soft focus, have them running in all laughing at that, have that kind of be the open, and then like, you know, maybe have Ian's voice over it explaining it. I don't get up to my father's grave, however you want to do it, but then you kind of cut it straight to him being enlisted, then you cut it straight to him being there, and then you know, I don't know, obviously not a TV show / movie maker here, but you then drip feed that information. You cut back to that time he was with his dad, or that time he was out in the, you know, in the wilds kind of setting a campfire. Oh my god, TJ, how do you know how to do that? And then like it cuts back to him, you know, giving it all the, you know, starting the fire and things like that. And you show don't tell, but like it's, you know, you can cut back to certain scenes of his mum going like, oh, you know, you're always out fishing, as it all of a sudden he's like, you know, that kind of thing where you drip feed the information. So instead of just being like episode 1 is just TJ at 7, TJ at 8, TJ at 9, all the way up to university, instead you just cut back and you give them flashbacks when those flashbacks provide context, or, you know, you have an episode where half the episode is actually based around something that happened a long time ago, but then you cut back into like present as such, which then explains like his temper, or, you know, things like that. You know, not his temper, you know, his temperament, I think is the word I was looking for. So, you know, something that has kind of influenced that in the past. So then that would stop the audience from getting bored by you just dropping backstory on them in the first hour.
I love the way I literally just had that same imagery in my head, is, you know, opening to like a war sequence and then him sitting there, and even just in dialogue alone, you can tell like just the barking orders from, even with someone with a posh accent, for example, even just simply saying, listen to my command, or whatever. I think the British audience would probably pick up on it instantly. Right. Now for an American audience, I think there's some kind of awareness that sometimes officers are idiots. Like, let's be honest. Right. But yeah, I love the idea of him flashing back to a memory. Like you said, like how did, you know, in real time presence is like, oh, how did you learn how to make fire? He can flash back to a camping moment or whatever it might be. So yeah, I'm right there with you on it. But yeah, I mean, see, what you described made me give a damn. Made me go, ooh, okay. What is it about this kid that we want to learn more memories from? Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're not just thinking, oh, you know, we already know all this. We're thinking, okay, why on earth does he know that? How does he know that? What also contributed to this? Right. And like, you just give them more information. So not only are you saying what happens next, but you're also making them think, maybe we'll find out why he knows how to do this. Maybe we'll find out why this is the case.
Or my personal favorite use is the what's that use of foreshadow? So in a pilot, you know nothing, but doing a Easter egg foreshadowing in the pilot as well. I always get tickled by things like that because I have a tendency to rewatch things that I like. Like I've rewatched Westworld like a ton of times. So
I'm actually rewatching it
Are you?
at the moment.
That's funny.
There's
That with
there's a go ahead.
there
I'm
are
sorry.
themes in this that
Right.
you know, the deepest themes of life, morality and all sorts threaded throughout this. So if it's possibly something to keep in the back of our minds, but as much as anything, that's a job for the editing. So as long as we get the writing right, and if we film it right, decisions like that can almost be made in the editing later on.
Well, what do you think about this? I like this discussion. This is carrying my mind to a certain place, and that's okay. So I think about the series Shogun, which I watched through twice, but that's partly because I'm a Japan nerd and I love the stuff. But I think about how it it like opens with the kind of title sequence, like the year is 1600. It sets the stage. You already kind of have a historical idea of what's happening at the beginning, and even if you don't know the characters yet, you feel the tension of these rival groups that are vying for the ultimate shogun power, because the guy is going to die, the one in charge.
Spoiler alert.
And okay, so you pit that against this other show I just started watching. It stars Jeff Bridges. It's called The Old Man, and he's like a retired, I won't tell you the whole premise, but he's a retired CIA guy, and he's been living off the grid, dormant, not active for 30 years. And for some reason, in the pilot and in the first few episodes, they need to find him, and it upheaves. Is that the right word?
Only the old guy can do this particular
Yeah,
task.
right. Or whatever. Yeah. And I watched that pilot, and if it weren't for Jeff Bridges, because I'm a huge fan, because I'm a big Lebowski fan, I don't know if I would have even. And I have an attention span better than your average cat, and so I normally could sit through it. I might have turned it away, but I think it's fantastic. It took me 30 minutes to get into it. It's what I'm trying to say. And for 30 minutes, there were no explosions. You didn't know. It only just gave you these traces, these hints of who this character is. So you had to pay attention. Like, well, why is he going to the doctor's office? Does he have Alzheimer's or something? There are all these, there's more question marks than there is information at the beginning.
What is up with a former intelligence agent living off the grid? Like, how much crap have we put our poor people in that they're like, after their careers working for our governments, they're like, yeah, I just want to be away from all of humanity. I'm sorry.
Why is every movie that comes out around Father's Day, why is that always the plot where it's like some secret agent or some operative is now living in a cabin halfway up a mountain, and then some guy turns up and steals his dog or something, and then immediately he's like, fine, I'll do one last job. And that's every single one of those.
It's such a trope, but yet at the same time it does articulate what we're trying to say, is like, this guy has been through a lot in a world where CIA operative or is it M1 or MI? Are you guys MI6?
MI6.
MI6?
Yeah. MI6 and MI5.
Oh my gosh. Just too much peoples.
Which do you see TJ's War? Obviously, it kind of seems more like the Shogun setup, but maybe do an element where we don't give away everything. There's something to make you want to know more about who this person is and what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I write a bit, but I'm not a writer as such, not as my main profession. So from the little I know, there are kind of techniques and stuff that just, for instance, if you want to establish that if you want us to be on the side of somebody, and we will want people to be on the side of TJ, we can have him do something that will automatically have us rooting for him.
Right.
And I don't know whether this is interesting. I don't know whether this would read beyond the UK as much as it would here. But if there's, for instance, the kind of 24-year-old upper class young officer that is making wrong decisions and being arrogant about it, and talking down to people, pretty quickly, within half a scene, we'll think we're not on his side. And if, for instance, we see TJ, it could just be some tiny little thing like making a brew perhaps at night, and making sure that one of the guys that's struggling is okay. There needn't necessarily even be a line, and we think, yeah, this is a good guy.
Right.
So
yeah, you don't even need dialogue
stuff like
for
that can be,
yeah.
It can just be action, just a little gesture, or perhaps if someone is being bullied, TJ could stand up for them. There's a phrase called "Save the Cat." There's a really great book on story writing by Blake Snyder, I think the guy's name is, if anyone's interested in looking this up, which is all about the story structure and how you elicit responses from the audience. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but
you're onto something, because I think we don't try to tell the whole story in the first episode. I think we keep quite a lot of it hidden. I think the idea of the pilot, I'm just, brainstorming here, but I think the idea of the pilot is, okay, who is TJ? Why should I care? Who is this guy? And, maybe the whole first episode is just some degree of the description you just gave, where, he's dealing with some snot-nosed superior officer who really doesn't know anything. And he helps, he's got a compassionate heart, and you see these, like, you fall in love with the character before you've even heard him say a word, that sort of thing. Like, I could see the first 20 minutes of it being like that.
Absolutely, yeah. But meanwhile, we're in a high-octane, interesting, action-packed environment,
right?
So that it's not kind of, okay, we've got 20 minutes of him starting out at university, and okay, he's meeting. Oh, okay, so he's met his roommate. Good, yeah. I think if we start like that, the audience might, it might be beautifully made and beautifully shot, but
I don't think we do start like that. I don't know. Well, again, we're brainstorming as we talk this through, but I think it starts there in Norway. I know that there's an intro to the book, and in which Ian finds his father, and at one point in time I thought, well, the movie starts there, but that's when I was envisioning it as a 2-hour movie. As a series, I think it starts in Norway, and then and for listeners who haven't read the book, this, I don't want to dive too far down the rabbit hole of the story, so that they don't know what we're talking about. But I think you actually start where TJ's in Norway, and
but
later on you
go read the book.
Yeah, of course. But they
go listen to the book.
The intro, though, where Ian finds his father, should be in the series, but as a what do you call it, a look back,
retrospective,
yeah, flashback. That is the word I was actually looking for.
I kind of disagree with both Mark and David here. I think we, not 20 minutes. I think like the first 5-6 minutes of the episode should be, I think the opening scene should be them going into the office, the area where they all sign up, they all enlist. I think that should be the opening scene. It should be sunny, it should be lovely, it should be whatever. And then I think it should be, however they do it, there should be like a cut into it. So you've immediately got this like clean, all this kind of like, and then it cuts into just destruction and World War II. I feel like, I don't know, I just always envisioned it starting at the point of the enlisting, but not going on for 20 minutes. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about like they enlist, and it's like, because my feeling about the book is you have this scene where he enlists and he thinks, it's never going to happen. It's going to be all right. I'm just going to become a vet. And he doesn't think about the fact that he's enlisted until all of a sudden they're like dragging him to go and, join this conflict. And I think you've got to have it. I just think we can't start without it. But
I like the way your brain's going on that. I like the setting the tone of starting a movie with light, a lot of light, and then I could see it where, like you're saying, like if you almost like want to say it's like two stories simultaneously. If you want to think about that linear narrative of like him enlisting, and then of course is like younger years, college years, etc., and then you've got him in a battle scene. I could see that being cut back and forth, where they'd be like flashback, flash forward, like but have a massive color contrast. You got your bright blues and then dark grays, and then obviously I would probably heighten the color of red to just emphasize. You don't need the bloody, but you just need something to show the starkness of both. It's like a flash forward, flash back.
Yeah. I see it as like sunset colors, and then instead of like reds and stuff, I see it as more like your grey blues, and you're so you're putting color in them, and you take the color out in the like the flash forwards. So whereas a lot of things like take the color out for the flash back, I feel like the flash forwards you remove the color, because it's like the color's gone out of his life. He's now in this Norwegian just fjord, just trekking through, and like it's miserable, it's cold, and you cut back to happy times, and then like that kind of thing where all of a sudden you're just like, what on earth, why is he here? And then even if you like end the episode and you have him running simultaneously in that episode 1, and you end the episode with him being dragged off to enlist, and then it cuts forward to him becoming, them saying you're going to now go into military intelligence, and you do that all simultaneously as the episode goes along. I don't know, it just, for that would be a lot more interesting than just simply starting it in the middle of a conflict, because then you're just like, okay, it's just some guy in a
war somewhere,
side of a road in a war.
Yeah, I think we should be the writers, Quinn.
Famous last words.
What challenges do you think we face in ensuring the pilot could stand on its own as a 1-hour thing, but while also setting it up for future episodes? Like, does it end with a cliffhanger?
Yeah, 100% cliffhanger. You got to have a cliffhanger.
Like, shouldn't the pilot? I guess what I'm trying to say is, once you've got the deal with Netflix, Paramount Plus, whatever, and you're doing 10 episodes, you can have episode 6 be a kind of episode that's like it's the middle of the story. There's not a beginning, there's not an ending to it. It's just in between episodes 5 and 7. It's just the continuation of the story. But the pilot has to be a story in and of itself, I think. So what story do you tell in the first one, your first shot at it?
As long as it's not so finished that we've tied all the ends up.
Well, you won't. I mean, you're tying up one end, and then which is also opening the door to the next thing. But I think that it has to be one story, one micro story of TJ's story.
But I think this is all that we have time for today. So we'll join the guys next week on continuing their conversation. And thank you all very much for watching. And we'll see you soon.
See ya!
To find out more about the book, visit TJSWAR.com. And to buy it, click on the Amazon link below. To accompany us on our journey, please subscribe to this podcast, because we're going to make a $50 million movie.